Nikki Fried is the lone Democrat elected statewide, and she is often the main voice of opposition to DeSantis administration policies, and she was that voice again this week.
Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services has been critical of the governor's direction on COVID health and safety, and she was one of the first to defend the former state data analyst Rebekah Jones, who was served with a search warrant this week, who posted the video from that FDLE operation all over social media. Nikki Fried is with us live via Skype today from Jacksonville. Good morning, Commish. Great to have you with us.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
I am great. It's so good to be with you all. Today is my birthday, so it's even more special.
Happy birthday! Another year,
friends and family.
Another year more fabulous.
Feliz cumpleaños. We wish you a happy birthday. Commissioner, let's begin here with the Rebekah Jones incident where the FDLE agents went to her home, and even though, the allegation is that she somehow hacked into the state Department of Health computer system, she's a data analyst, and yet we all saw the guns come out as the agents went in, although there was no threat from her, and you issued a strong statement condemning that. So what was wrong? What did the FDLE agents do that angered you and concerns you?
Look, as most people know, I'm a past public defender and had clients that were accused of much more egregious crimes that were met with less aggression. And I'm certainly not here to, really criticize the frontline officers, and I appreciate all that they do. But anytime that you see a situation like this and you see guns pulled where there's children in the house, it's very alarming. But I also want to get everybody back to how we got here, how we're here in the first place. And that goes back to the transparency and lack thereof of Governor DeSantis. If he had ever been open and honest with the citizens of the state of Florida, Rebekah Jones doing her job, trying to bring light to some of this, and the reality of the situation was he has lacked leadership day one, and that's what we got us here for, is because of his lack of transparency and his data spinning all along this.
In the absence of someone to rebut and refute, let me just play devil's advocate for a moment here. I want to go back to the actual operation. I will say, having covered police operations and search warrant services, search warrant service is one of the most dangerous things police officers do. We have been privy to, thanks to FDLE, the other side of the story. The officers we saw really doing what protocol says they should do. Rebekah Jones didn't open the door for them for 13 to 17 minutes. And so their guns drawn is actually protocol in what they were doing. They were exceedingly respectful to her. And to your point, the reason they were there was because they were serving a search warrant on something she may or may not have done. She denies it. But what is inappropriate about that?
Once they got into the house and she was very clear that there was children inside, I have 3 young stepsons. And I know that in a time when, they're running around the houses and they're playing hide and go seek, and you have, big banging on the front door, and now you have cops coming into the house, that they're scared. And who knows that they could have jumped out of a hiding place behind a closet, run down the stairs really fast, and having those guns drawn. Even in executing a search warrant and a nonviolent crime, there has been no allegations that there was ever weapons in the house or that she has any past history of anything with weapons involved. That you take some extra precautions, and then unfortunately I have questions of whether or not that was appropriate, knowing that there was children in the home, and none of us want to see that. But again, I go back to how we got here. And we need to be able to flip this and understand that Rebekah would have never been fired if she hadn't stepped up and tried to make sure that there was transparency, that the citizens of our state were actually getting accurate information from the Department of Health, because they've lost faith and trust in Governor DeSantis. And, certainly, definitely do not condone any type of criminal activity, and I really appreciate, our frontline officers. But when children are involved, you got to take those extra precautions.
Yeah, Secretary Fried, I think that I could say objectively, Governor DeSantis has not been very transparent in releasing data about COVID-19, or he's tried to spin it to look more positive. Not sure why. Maybe he's trying to please President Trump. In any event, the December 6th White House Coronavirus Task Force report, which we have now seen, says that Florida just simply has to get much tougher in the fight against the virus, that indoor dining should be ended, perhaps, or much more limited. Masks have to be worn, maybe enforce fines against them. Bars should be shut down. Have you had a chance at a cabinet meeting to say to the governor, come on, governor, do some of this stuff?
Yeah, first and foremost, the governor has canceled a great majority of our cabinet meetings this year. And then every single time that I've asked for something about COVID-19 updates, conversations amongst the cabinet, requests for those to be onto the agenda, he has denied all of my requests every single time. I've had an opportunity at the end to, say something. He has not responded to any of my requests. And, this goes into line of just his lack of leadership here. And our local governments, are trying to do what's best for their communities. And he's even banned our local governments from doing what's best, whether it's mask mandates, whether it's trying to limit exposure inside of restaurants and nightclubs, to even curfews. And he has said, nope, it is his way or the highway. There will be no mask mandates. There will be no pulling back of regulations. His vision of what is happening in our country, in our state, and our country is vastly different than what is really happening out there. And we've got tens of millions of people across our state and across our country that are still scared, that are in very centers where they're seeing it upticks, and people that are really getting sick and dying, unfortunately. We even saw one of the University of Florida basketball players this weekend collapse on the field, on the court, and they're saying that it's because of remnants of having COVID-19.
Commissioner, I want to bring it down, targeting something that's in your lane, the agricultural industry in Florida, statewide, especially in South Day 2, in our part of the town. $50 billion impact so far from COVID, 34% decline in financials. Later on in this program, we're going to have the president and CEO of Feeding South Florida, who gets a lot of the supplies from the farmers and growers who are now hurting for their own markets. And then we just had a deadline on Friday for them to apply for relief. Bring us up to date on the status of that relief, which we're still waiting for Congress to do, and the progress of how they're going to recover.
Sure. First and foremost, our agriculture community and our growers and producers are some of the most resilient in the entire country and the world. They go through droughts, they go through hurricanes, but COVID is something that we've never seen before. And so we saw actually $500 million worth of losses between March and April, when most of the food service industry shut down, whether that was restaurants, our theme parks, to schools, cruise line industry. And so we saw those, but we pivoted very fast inside the Department of Agriculture. Started an online marketplace for our producers to kind of put everything on there. The consumers went directly online, really saved a lot of our agricultural growers and producers along the way. And so now they're relying a lot on the federal dollars that have obviously been very slow. We were trying to get some of those dollars down back in March and April, and some more freedom and flexibility on purchasing powers from our food banks. But unfortunately, that was slow to come down too, and didn't receive any of that until about May, June. When most of our harvest was done. So as agriculture now is preparing for the next harvest, they're seeing the upticks, of course, in all of our food supply chains kind of decrease still, and all of our food bank lines going around the corner. And they're doing their part. They're donating a significant amount to our food banks, but we need that federal assistance come down sooner than later. Our food banks are just not able to keep up. We keep telling people, please volunteer, please give, please, whether it's financially or go and give different cans of different food, please, to our food banks. Everybody is in need. And unfortunately, when we saw 3 million of our citizens across the state of Florida food insecure, that was before the pandemic. And that, of course, is increasing every single day as our unemployment numbers continue to rise. And a lot of those jobs, especially in kind of the tourism industry, is just not going to come back.
Well, food scarcity is huge, and it's a big concern of yours, we know. Secretary Nikki Fried, great to speak with you. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. And please, everybody, mask up, wash your hands, social distance. The message isn't coming from the governor. At least listen to your local and other leaders out there. Please mask up, wash your hands, social distance.
That message is coming
Good
from
advice.
a lot of people.